Last week, I brought you an emotional series of stories about a homeless, heroin-addicted man that, along with his loving family and some true professionals, we located and convinced to turn his life around and enter rehab. Now, I've received messages from all over the country as our viewers saw TJ Walsh struggle firsthand, but we wanted to know what legislators in New Jersey were doing to battle this heroin epidemic from the top down. Congressman Tom MacArthur invited us to his home in Toms River, a town in Ocean County, a county that has been ravaged by heroin use and abuse. Now, in January, he becomes a leading member of the bipartisan task force to combat the heroin epidemic here in New Jersey.
The task force does a number of things. First, we try to educate the entire Congress on what the issues are so that people open their hearts and open the federal budget. Because this takes money, takes resources.
We said that addiction doesn't discriminate by tax bracket, color, or gender. And right off the bat, Congressman MacArthur told me a story of a good friend that he recently lost to addiction.
He was a close friend. Our kids played together. They grew up together. He was a family man. He was a hard worker. And he just went down the long road of addiction and just couldn't fight his way out. And he died. It hit home that he just couldn't will his way out of it.
I actually had Blake Saba, who performed the intervention on TJ Walsh, come to Toms River with Joe Curran from the Ambrosia Treatment Centers because we wanted to have a conversation between the lawmakers and the boots that are actually on the ground trying to save some of these addicts.
Probably the biggest challenge that we face as an industry as a whole is dealing with the insurance companies. We have strong evidence that shows that people that are engaged in some kind of treatment for a long period of time have higher success rates.
As of now, without insurance or Medicare or Medicaid, an addict really doesn't have many options to get help or enter rehab. They can be willing, but still won't be able to. Bills will be introduced to allow family members, even their extended families, such as cousins, aunts, uncles, regardless if the addict lives in their household or not, to use their own health savings.
My bill would simply allow family members to use those health savings accounts for their broad family. Wow. Aunts, uncles, nieces, nephews, cousins, dependent or not dependent. It's just saying that the federal government wants to help you help your family member.
Funding to fight this battle seems to be, like I said, the overarching issue, but New Jersey could be on its way for some success in 2017 as $1 billion in federal money was acquired by the Heroin Task Force to help this fight in 2017 and beyond. What I'm seeing along this journey is each person involved has passion and their own story regarding addiction, and it just goes to show us that this epidemic is one step away from all of us.
What are these guys doing on the front end? You know, we've had a lot of conversations with heroin addicts, recovering addicts. Nobody deals with the need for coping skills and overcoming adversity. We have such an escape-based society where people go and they get hooked on things.
I am so glad you brought up what's happening before they even start to use heroin. We need to address how people are parenting their children. I didn't want to be the one to bring it up first, but I'm glad we're talking about it. No, is it a society where we're catering to our children and we're not telling them no is no? I don't know if that's it. I don't know if we need to bring more DARE programs into high schools, but something needs to be done with funding so that it's addressed before people take the needle.
In a year, I looked up the stats, the U.S. spent over $15 billion on the war on drugs. Then you have these politicians that come and say, oh, we don't have enough funding to pay for enough heroin beds. Hello, you have $15 billion you're spending every year on the war on drugs. It's not preventing people from being addicted to it. Obviously, it's omnipresent. Anybody who wants to have heroin can score heroin, so stop the war on drug first.
This could really hit home for any one of us, and I will use myself as an example. After going through a major surgery and being put on extremely heavy prescription drugs, it is really hard to wean yourself away from some of these drugs. And a lot of times when we're covering these stories, we hear about people, they had a back surgery and they were on Percocets and they were on morphine. So it could be any one of us. It's not someone always making a bad choice.
I think the idea of the involuntary commitment is a very interesting one. It has kind of two different schools of thought. On one side, someone, if you have a loved one that's using drugs, they're not thinking clearly, and you just want to be able to get them in, get them detoxed, and maybe they'll take that step themselves. But on the other hand, a lot of people say if the addict is not ready to make a change, they're not going to.